Hello. In the early 1950s, a group of several hundred people were living in a small rural town in the American state of Kansas. On a summer night, a call came into the town's administration from a person reporting that a terrifying sight, the likes of which he had never seen before, had appeared in the sky. Minutes passed, and the administration was stunned by dozens of calls from other citizens reporting the same thing. Because it was a small town with limited resources, the report was escalated to a neighboring town. A patrol was dispatched to see what was happening, but what they discovered was far stranger than the reports they had received. The town of Ashley, along with all its residents, had completely vanished from the face of the earth. Welcome, and today I'm going to tell you about the incident of the disappearance of the town of Ashley. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to be notified of our new story every week. Our story begins with Gabriel Johnson, a simple American citizen working as a farmer and shepherd in a rural town named Ashley in Kansas. In early August of 1952, Gabriel told a few of his acquaintances that he had repeatedly heard strange sounds coming from an unknown source near the village's border. When he started talking to people, he discovered he wasn't the only one hearing these sounds. In fact, other people were also seeing strange lights that would suddenly appear and disappear in the middle of the night. One day, specifically on Friday, August 8th, Gabriel called the town administration at 7:13 p.m. to report something strange that had appeared before him in the sky. A bizarre, black-colored opening in the heart of the sky above the town. It appeared suddenly, and nothing was coming out of it, nor was anything going into it. But due to the strangeness of the report, the administration official didn't believe a word he said, assuming he was drunk or hallucinating. He advised him to stop drinking and hung up on him. Barely a few minutes passed, and dozens of calls began to flood in from other citizens of Ashley, all reporting the same strange thing Gabriel had reported. A large, pitch-black, and very frightening opening in the heart of the town's sky, like a tear in the sky itself, in a way that no one had ever seen before. When the reports multiplied, the administration official began to believe that Gabriel's call wasn't from a drunk person after all. It was clear that a catastrophe was unfolding. But at that moment, the official didn't know what to tell them or how to help. When the news spread among the office employees, they went out themselves to verify the story. Indeed, when they went out, they saw with their own eyes the strange opening in the sky and confirmed that the problem was far beyond their ability to handle. In the end, they were just a small administrative office in a small town whose population was said to be around 700 people. Here they decided to escalate the matter to the town of Hayes, a neighboring town that sometimes helped them with security matters. Although it was also a small town, it was larger than Ashley and had its own security forces. They called them and told them about the reports they had received and that they had gone out and confirmed their validity themselves, seeing the strange phenomenon in the sky, Insei. But the problem was that the administration of Hayes and its police officers were also not convinced by what they were being told. The distance between Ashley and Hayes wasn't very large, and when they looked at the sky from their location, they saw nothing above Ashley, nor had they received a report from any of their own town's residents. With the continued reports and Ashley's administration insisting on their story, the Hayes police began to take the matter seriously and decided to send a reconnaissance officer to see what this strange business was all about. That officer was Patrolman Alan Mays. The next morning, at 7:54 a.m., Alan left the Hayes police station and drove his car onto the only road connecting Ashley with the neighboring towns. A road known to everyone living in Hayes and one they had driven on many times before. But what happened on this particular day was very strange. Alan kept driving a long distance and began to feel that the journey was taking much longer than necessary. Every so often, he would look around to see if he had arrived, only to find he was still on the highway. Until suddenly, he found himself back in Hayes again, without knowing how. The road from Hayes to Ashley was a straight road. There were no side roads, no curves, no detours, nothing. It's not logical for someone to get lost on a road like that, even if they didn't know it by heart. Nevertheless, Alan blamed himself for not paying attention and got back on the road, starting the journey again. But time passed, and he ended up back in Hayes a second time. At that point, Alan was certain that something was wrong. Alan returned to the police station and immediately reported what had happened to him. Based on his strange report, a convoy of 7 police cars set out at 9:15 a.m., heading from Hayes to Ashley. But after they got on the road, the same thing happened to the 7 cars that had happened to Alan when he was alone. All 7 found themselves back in Hayes. While this was happening, the calls from the afflicted town did not stop. In fact, they increased and grew stranger with each person who called the police. All the calls stated that the strange black opening in the sky had grown much larger and was continuing to expand. They were trying to get out of the town, but there was no other road. The only road leading to Ashley was not leading anywhere. Then, on the same day at 8:17 p.m., a call came into the Hayes police from a resident of Ashley named Eileen Candy. She reported that her neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Milton, and their children, Jeffrey and Brooke, were missing, and no one could find any trace of them in the entire town. The Milton family, according to Eileen's description, were terrified by what they had seen in the sky and had tried to flee the town completely in their car. But after they left their house and started on their way, no one saw their car again, nor did anyone even see them leaving the town's limits. The Hayes police at the time tried to confirm if anyone had indeed come from the direction of Ashley, but when they monitored the roads and asked all the town's residents, it turned out that not a single resident of Hayes had seen a car matching the description of the Milton family's car, or even one similar to it. Then, the night passed and August 10th began. At 7:30 a.m., the calls started pouring into the Hayes police again, but this time people were complaining that Ashley was plunged into a complete darkness that enveloped the entire town. When the police responded, "Folks, it's 7:30 in the morning. The sun should be up." The caller's response was that the sun had not risen since it set the previous night. At that point, the police officers decided they had to reach these people by any means necessary. They requested a helicopter, which set out in the direction of Ashley, hoping the view would be better from the air. The helicopter did move towards Ashley, but unfortunately it also couldn't reach it. Or more accurately, it was able to reach the location where the town was supposed to be, but they saw nothing from the air. All they found at the town's location was an empty expanse of land. The situation remained like this until the afternoon of August 11th. Here, something happened that made the situation take an even stranger turn. A resident of Ashley named Phoebe Danielewski called the Hayes police and told them that her daughter Erica was talking to her father from behind the locked door of their apartment. Her father, who was standing outside in the total darkness that had engulfed the town for nearly 2 days. When the police asked her what was strange about that and why her father had gone out of the house in these circumstances when they had warned everyone not to leave their homes, Phoebe's reply was that her husband had been in a car with a drunk driver 3 years ago, and both of them had died in a car accident. She said, in a voice full of terror, that Erica was determined to go out into the complete darkness outside to be with them. After Phoebe's horrifying call, the calls began to rain down on the Hayes police. 329 calls, all reporting similar incidents with their young children standing in their homes, talking to people from behind the doors, either people who had been dead for years or complete strangers they didn't know. Despite the strangeness of this huge number of reports, the real disaster was the next day, August 12th. More than 400 calls from Ashley citizens reported that over 200 of the town's children had all disappeared during the night, and no one knew where they were. What was even stranger was that they had disappeared from inside houses that the owners had locked themselves and were sure they were secure. Everyone confirmed that there was no sign of a break-in, no strange noises during the night, nothing. Suddenly, without any warning, the children vanished from their midst as if they had dissolved into thin air. A very difficult day passed for the residents of Ashley. Then came August 13th. At 5:19 p.m., the Hayes police received a call from an elderly citizen who reported that he could see from his window a large fire coming from the south. By his description, the fire was so huge that it illuminated the town that had been plunged in darkness for days. Minutes passed, and the calls began to increase from people also reporting the same fire. Some even described it as a fire falling from the sky itself, from the black opening they had reported on the first day. But what was strange was that no one living near the town of Ashley reported seeing anything like what they were seeing. A few hours passed. At 12 o'clock midnight, a call came in from a man named Benjamin Endicott, saying that the fire they had reported had intensified greatly, to the point that the entire town was lit up as if it were daytime. Suddenly, the line cut off after the last thing Benjamin said was that he saw something coming from the south. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to describe to the police what that thing was. The state of terror and tension continued until the final call arrived at 9:47 p.m. A terrifying call by all measures. Officer Peter Welch from the Hayes Police was the one who answered the call this time. As soon as he picked up the receiver, he heard a muffled, unclear voice. He began to identify himself, stating he was from the Hayes Police Department and his name was Peter Welch, but no one responded. When he repeated himself and asked, "Is anyone there?" he heard the voice of an elderly woman say, "Yes, yes." Welch immediately responded, "Ma'am, who is this? Please identify yourself." She replied, "My name is April Foster," and her words were interrupted by a cough that revealed she was an elderly woman. She said in a trembling voice, "Please help me." The officer replied, "Describe exactly what's happening." She responded in a hoarse voice, "Yesterday, they came back." Welch's response was, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to clarify." Before he could finish his sentence, she screamed at him in a high-pitched voice, "They all came back yesterday," and began to cry hysterically. Peter tried to calm her down and asked her to speak clearly so they could understand who exactly had returned and from where. She lowered her voice even more and said, "They all came back yesterday. They all came out of the fire." Peter replied, "Who are all these people who came out of the fire?" She answered, "Yesterday, I saw my son walking. He was walking in the street and his whole body was burned." She continued to cry. At that moment, Peter suspected her son had died in the fire people were reporting and was about to try and comfort her when she cut him off and said, "My son died last year. I saw him yesterday. I warned him. I told him to watch out for cars when he plays with his bike, but he wouldn't listen." Peter couldn't comprehend anything she was saying and told her, "I need you to calm down and explain to me what is happening where you are." She replied hysterically, "Aren't you listening to what I'm telling you? I'm telling you, they came back. They all came back. Everyone who died and disappeared came back yesterday, and they're looking for us. My son spoke to me and called out to me. He said, 'Mama, I'm okay. Where are you? I want to see you.'" Suddenly, she fell silent. Peter, in a state of complete shock, asked her, "Are you in a safe place?" She said, "I'm hiding, just like everyone else. We are all hiding. We all saw them coming from the fields, but some people opened the doors for them. They opened them after they saw their missing loved ones." Peter then began to hear screaming sounds coming from a distance, which were interrupted by April's voice as she told him, "I don't know what happened to them exactly, but I got scared and locked myself in even tighter. When I looked out the window, I saw their houses on fire, burning with them trapped inside. I'm hiding in a closet on the ground floor now." Suddenly, April went silent. Peter started calling her name, asking her, "Are you safe? Are you okay? If you can hear me, give me any sign." But, unfortunately, April did not respond. Suddenly, he heard the sound of glass breaking and April's voice crying and telling him, "Help me! Something has entered the house." Peter replied, "Stay as quiet as you can. Don't make any sound." Suddenly, he heard a child's voice coming from a distance saying, "Mama, I'm here." Seconds later, he heard the sound of footsteps approaching from a distance and a child calling out, "Mama, are you hiding from me? Where are you?" And the sound of April's breathing getting heavier with fear. Peter tried to reassure her, telling her, "Don't be afraid, he will leave." But the sound of the footsteps was getting clearer and closer to the receiver. Suddenly, a child's laugh saying, "I found you, Mama." April began to scream, and there was a loud crash in the phone receiver and the line went dead. This terrifying call was the last one received from the town of Ashley by the Hayes police. After that, the police kept trying to reach anyone from there. But at dawn on August 17th, the state of Kansas detected a violent earthquake with a magnitude of 7.9 on the Richter scale, which struck the area where the town was located. The U.S. Geological Survey said that the earthquake's epicenter was directly beneath the town of Ashley. Of course, an earthquake of this magnitude didn't just affect Ashley. It affected all the neighboring towns, including Hayes. Consequently, security forces from Hayes set out for the second time towards Ashley, but this time, it wasn't like every other time. The road didn't end with them back in Hayes as it had before. This time, they actually reached the town of Ashley, or the site of the town of Ashley. And what they found there was a surprise by all measures. After the Hayes police arrived at the site of Ashley, they discovered that the entire town had disappeared. And what is meant here by disappeared is not that its residents had died. The town itself had disappeared. Its houses, its people, its crops, its sidewalks, everything in it, literally. It was as if a town had never existed in this place before. What was even stranger was that while they were searching for any remains of the town, they found nothing but a large fissure in the ground resembling a chasm, about 900 meters long and 450 meters wide. And what was even more strange was that the fissure was smoldering, and around it, there was no sign that there had ever been life here before. Thinned. After this strange discovery, the search efforts continued in the hope of finding any of the residents over a period of 12 days. But unfortunately, it was to no avail. There was nothing to indicate that people had ever been here. On August 29th, the police announced their failure to find any survivors and stopped the search. After despair took hold of the Hayes police force, they returned to their town and everyone went home. Around 2:30 a.m. on August 30th, a second earthquake, similar to the first, struck the area with a magnitude of 7.5 on the Richter scale. Again, the U.S. Geological Survey identified its epicenter, which turned out to be once again from beneath the town of Ashley, specifically at the fissure that was supposed to have swallowed the population. And just like the last time, the Hayes police went out to investigate. At 5:30 a.m., they arrived at the location, but this time, they found that the smoldering fissure that was in the ground had also disappeared. Amidst confusion, amazement, and terror, the police forces returned to Hayes once more, and it was agreed that no one would ever speak again about what happened to the cursed town of Ashley. Although the story we've told is strange, mysterious, and frightening, there is no evidence to confirm what happened in it, especially since the first time this story appeared on the internet was on April 7th, 2012, on a famous website called Creepypasta, which specializes in stories like this. After that, it was published on the famous website Reddit, and from there to many other sites. But are there any evidence, documents, or police reports that tell what happened? There is nothing. When we trace the events that occurred in this story ourselves, we found that the only earthquake that occurred near the state of Kansas in 1952 was on April 9th, not in August at all. And the earthquake's epicenter, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, was near the city of El Reno in the state of Oklahoma. Besides, common sense says that if two earthquakes of this magnitude struck the same place with such a short time difference, as happened, it would surely have been an unforgettable event and would have been recorded in history to this day. However, the records did not mention anything like that. Furthermore, American maps do not even have a town named Ashley in the state of Kansas. Add to that, one of the residents of the town of Hayes, where most of the story's events take place or near it, commented on this story and said that he himself checked the transportation and road maps in his town dating back to 1951 and found no mention of a nearby town named Ashley. But what makes us a little suspicious about the matter is that some sources mention that one of the hobbyists who collect antiques and old manuscripts claimed that among his possessions is a child's birth certificate dating back to 1934, which states that the child's mother was born in a town in Kansas named Ashley. So, was there a town named Ashley one day that was annexed into a larger city, as happens all the time? Or is the name Ashley a shortened or distorted name for another city, especially since Kansas has cities named Ashland and Ash Valley? And the most important question, is the whole story really fabricated? Or did it happen in some year, and as usual, the US government hid all traces of it? This is the question for which we have no answer. Before I sign off, your interaction with the channel has decreased, and since it dropped, YouTube has stopped recommending it as much as before, so please step it up. And with that, we reach the end of the story. I'm waiting for your opinions, and if you have a story you want us to tell, write it in the comments. The idea that gets the most interaction I will work on, God willing. Show me your support now, with a subscription, a like, a comment, and all that good stuff. Share the video with anyone you think will like it. I'll see you next time with a story even more thrilling than the last. Peace.